Okay, we're going to do a quick demo using LabVIEW. This is also going to illustrate inputs, outputs, and processes in a computer model. So what we want to do is create a virtual instrument that could be used to model the situation below. So we got a water tank that has 3 outlets off of it. We want the user to be able to control the amount that each of those 3 outlets is set to. And each of those outlets is allowed to set a flow rate from 0 to 100 gallons of water per minute. So basically, you are able to control how much water between 0 and 100 gallons per minute is flowing out of each of the 3 outlets. The 3 outlets all join together into a single pipe. And so we want to gauge that registers what is the flow rate reading in that pipe, which should just be the sum of the 3 outlets together. So we're going to create a virtual instrument in LabVIEW that's going to do this just for a model. So we're going to click Create Program, Create. And the first thing with LabVIEW is we're going to hit Control T, and this will get our 2 screens that LabVIEW uses. One side is called the front panel. The front panel side looks like graph paper. The other side's the block diagram. It's just kind of white. Inputs and outputs go on the front panel side, and processes that convert the inputs to the outputs go over here on the block diagram side. So from our prompt, we wanted to create three controls that the user can use to set a flow rate between 0 and 100. With LabVIEW, as you right-click, this opens up the controls, which are where you can display inputs and outputs. If you right-click on the block diagram side, you get a different panel, and this has all the processes that you would want in it. So first, let's create these little sliders that we're going to use. So I'm going to right-click. I'm going to go to Numeric, and let's create a horizontal pointer slide. And we're going to call this outlet 1. And it's supposed to range from 0 up to 100. So let's change that 10 up to 100. And now my icon, my slider, is able to move from 0 up to 100. So that's my first user input. This is in gallons per minute. We may want to make a little comment by double-clicking that outlet units are GPM. So maybe we could just put that somewhere so it indicates that the outlet units are gallons per minute, and that way we don't have to write gallons per minute on each of these. I could copy-paste everything. I think I want to change the color here to make this kind of a bluish color. So I'm going to right-click, go down to Properties, go over here to fill. Since we're doing this on water, let's fill it in kind of a bluish color. And now that I've got that first outlet slide like I like it, I'm going to hold Control, and I'm going to left click on it, and I'm going to Control drag 2 other copies out. And so I have outlet 1, outlet 2, and outlet 3. I have kind of 3 slides that can represent the amount from 0 to 100 that each of these input valves is set to. So these will be the inputs of my system. The user is able to set a number between 0 and 100. Now you can kind of notice I can't really, when I left click and drag, it tells me the number, but when I let go, the number disappears. So what I want for an output, first of all, is it would be nice to be able to see what numbers these are sitting at. So I'm going to create 3 outputs next to these. I'm going to go to Numeric, get an indicator, place it here, and let's call this outlet value 1. So the outlet value 1 will be the value for outlet 1, and we'll get Control drag. Here's outlet value 2. Here's outlet value 3. On this side, I want outlet 1 to just display the outlet value 1, outlet 2 display outlet value 2, and outlet 3 display outlet value 3. So I'm just placing these right across from each other. If I run my code real quick, it instantly runs because I don't have any loops set up yet. And so this tells me outlet 1's actually set to 36.36. This one over here is to 85. This one here is to 80. But if I change these numbers don't update till I click the little run the code button again. And what we'd like is to click the run the code button once, and the code just keeps running until we tell it to stop. So I've got my inputs here. I got my outputs there. And these little wires that go between them, this is the processes that set the inputs over to the outputs. Now, we said we wanted a gauge that displays everything, so we're going to go back to numeric, and we're going to get a gauge. And this gauge here is going to display the flow rate in the actual pipe where all three of them are combined. So this is going to be the addition of all three of these. Since each of these goes up to 100, this thing needs to go up to 300. So I'll double click on that 10 and I'll type in a 300. We're going to have a similar problem where, if this is a number between 0 and 25 or between 100 and 150 or something, it's going to be hard to see what the actual number is. So I also want to create a numeric indicator over here that we can call gauge value. And this will tell me what number we are actually at. And so what I need to do to connect these inputs over to these outputs, I just need to add these all together. So I'm going to go over here in the functions panel, go under numeric, get a compound add. So this little plus here, this will add all my wires together. And then I can branch off this input wire. I'll branch it into the bit there, branch the second wire, branch the third wire. And so this now has outlet 1 plus outlet 2 plus outlet 3. And the overall output, I'll wire that into the gauge. And I also want that to display, so I'm going to branch the output wire into gauge value as well. So I'll branch that. And this now should, when I run the code, I can run the code on either of these sides. They both do the same thing. So if I run the code, now the sum of these three numbers is 176, and the gauge jumps directly to it. But we still have the same problem where if I move these sliders to different values, stuff doesn't update till I click the little run button again. So to fix that, I'm going to put a loop around my code. So I'm going to right click, go to structures, get a while loop. And what a while loop will do is it's going to keep looping what's inside the code till I set a true end condition in here. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to create a button. So get a stop button over here, and I guess we'll place the stop button down here. And I just will wire the stop button into that. So now what my while loop is going to do is say keep executing the code till someone presses the stop button. So now if we run it, as I move this, my numbers all change and are updating as I move these sliders around, which is what I want things to do. If we go up here to, these are all maxed out, 100 plus 100 plus 100 is 300, so everything's checking out nicely. And our code seems to be working. So we have a little model here that models the situation. The inputs, there's three inputs. There are these three outlet controllers. The outputs are these three values here, this gauge and this. And all the wiring and this little addition in between stuff, that is the processes. I guess the stop button is an input, and the wiring over here to the while loop is the output. And when you click the stop button, your code stops working. And you can tell your code when you run the code, the background grid pattern goes away. When you stop running the code, the little grid pattern comes back. And that's probably a good place to stop our code here. So.